Welcome back, everyone. Another episode on my channel, Raw Generate, and Professor Spiras' channel at Mucus Free Life, I believe. And we did an episode, about 2 years ago, and we covered a lot. And I really think that right now there's no better time than the day and age we're in right now, with the rise of people falling off the transition, ignoring the transition, not having anything to do with genders, guys. This is to do with diet, with the transition diet. I think Spira mentioned, we discussed that last time. Like, don't let them steal that word from us. This
Yeah,
is
yeah,
a
right.
transitionary diet. This is system that we need to follow. And I'm a practitioner trained by Dr. Morse, but a heavy follower of Spira and Arnold Ehret's work, because I've seen the difference between someone just thinking, no, I have to be 100% fruit, and they can't have a bowel movement. They then have pumpkin or sweet potato or a zucchini with some steamed greens or a light salad, bam, they have a bowel movement. And why we have to work that system, and why, yes, the ultimate may be a frugivorous nature, a frugivorous lifestyle, that we are frugivores. But I would say beyond that, we ultimately, who knows what that could look like, and the paradise that we could have. And I really want to get stuck into today with Spira about why we're seeing this divide, this pushback, there's even conflict within our community still. This you're right, I'm wrong, you can't have that, you can't have that, opposed to the bigger picture of what are we actually doing? How are we going after our health? Understanding that we have ups and downs, understanding that we may have a higher high and a lower low, and not to be thrown off and then to think, oh, I have to go carnivore, I have to go some other extreme thing. And I've just noticed this a lot within my personal life, with people going back to these things after years of being vegan, of being on fruit, raw, transition diets. They've not understood clearly enough that they've gone back to just eating the very things that got them into that problem in the first place. So, yeah, without further ado, Spira, thanks so much for connecting and being here today with me. And I'm so keen to get stuck into these things.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. And it's always a pleasure to talk with you and Mucusless Diet Healing System. That's what I've been
Yeah.
doing for the past 23 years. When I
Mm.
started off, I was over 300 pounds. I always had to show the before and after. This was
Hmm.
23 years ago.
Wow.
Had all kinds of ailments. The laundry list of issues of sleep apnea. I had a sleep CPAP unit on every
Mm.
night at the age of 19. Basically, like, I need oxygen at night to be able to breathe. The doctor told me that I'd die if I didn't use it.
Yeah.
Allergy medication since I was 5, 6, 7 years old. Um, Chronic migraine headaches every day of my life. Chronic bronchitis, just bouts of bronchitis every year, and a number of other issues, all changed within 6 months. And I learned about this diet called the Mucusless Diet Healing System by Professor Arnold Ehret, and read the book. And 6 months later, had lost 100 pounds, overcame all those different ailments that I just mentioned. No more migraine headaches every day, no more CPAP unit, got rid of that, no more pharmaceutical medications. And these were all things that doctors told me you are going to be on them for the rest of your life. That was not the case. And I totally transformed my health, transformed my life. And ever since then, I've been trying to create an opportunity for other people to learn what I learned, heal themselves naturally, unplug. People like to use that word, the matrix. Well, this is the real version of that. Unplugging from the proverbial matrix.
Yeah.
But basically, the Mucusless Diet Healing System is a transitional system
Hmm.
to get away from mucus forming foods or mucus and pus forming foods. What are these foods? Any food item that turns into slime. When I ask people, well, what foods are mucus forming? The first thing that usually comes to mind is milk. It's like, yes, milk is mucus forming,
Hmm.
but also chicken, also cheese, also, there's a whole list of things that are mucus forming. Not all mucus forming foods are created equal. So there's some
Hmm.
mucus forming foods that we use to transition off of worse mucus forming foods. And that's one of the most important aspects of the Mucusless Diet Healing System transition diet. Nobody else talks about that. There's no other it's like, oh well, let's transition rationally and gradually. And that is the foundation of almost all of these problems that you just mentioned about the carnivore people and folks that are dibbing and dabbing. In my book that I wrote years ago, Spirit Speaks, I say, don't straddle the barbed wire fence. Meaning that most of these people, they're trying to straddle. They're like, well, I'm raw vegan, but I'm also,
Yeah,
I have fish on Tuesdays, and it's just
yeah,
it's a mess. And so we'll
yeah.
get into that. But that's the Mucusless Diet Healing System. To me, it's the only disease-free diet for
Mhm.
humanity. It's our species-specific diet, but the mucusless diet by itself is the species-specific diet, but the healing system is what makes the mucusless diet possible for us in the condition that we're in.
Yeah.
We've eaten ourselves so far down into the gutter that we need to be very strategic and rational about how we raise ourselves up. And that's what
Hmm.
mucusless diet healing system does beautifully.
Yeah. Yeah. Well put, Spirit. And I think that what I've seen is people don't see the forest for the trees. They ignore the fact that there's a rational approach, and the world we live in is pulling us to not only quick fix. I've free calls with clients at the beginning, they want this quick fix thing, and you go, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like we got to be rational, we got to be smart, we got to look at what medications you've been on, the fact that you've got this genetic line, you've got all these things of the fact that humanity has stepped, as you said, very far down into the gutter. And to get ourselves out of that to what I would call like a baseline where we just living exactly as we're meant to on a mucus-free diet, which the most mucus-less foods is fruit. But if you chuck if you chuck too high of an energy, too mucus-less of a food into a body that's a stagnant cesspool, yeah, it could be fatal in some cases. And people don't want to acknowledge that. And I think it's this patience and this willingness to just follow the system and to not ignore the transition. And that's really my first point is I I think, and something you could expound upon more, is there's no better mucus forming diet than a carnivore based diet. Obviously, you've got the cooked dairies and these things as well, but when from a Dr. Morse perspective, and Arnold Erich says this too, is that the stagnation of a mucus forming diet is it's slow. There's like a stagnating cesspool forming, and when you go back to stimulant foods as well, like a protein food that is mucus forming and stimulative, you get the solution of healing, temporarily so. But I've seen people that
Right.
long term that go back to that, they generally come back going, I'm in a much worse spot than before. So
Exactly.
to just reemphasize, Spira, the importance of the transition, the importance of let's say there's someone that comes in with a problem, like what are some things they can do to not get so rushed and to not feel like, oh, I've got to have this result in 6 months. I got to have this in this amount of time. And 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 for me, just as a side note, when I've shown clients this, that's a relief to them, actually.
Hmm.
Not that I know you are going to get rid of this in this amount of time. No one can say that. But what we can say is that when you get yourself on this path, there might be periods where you can do more fruit, more juicing, where you aren't able to do that. This to-ing and fro, this ebb and flow, and why we're seeing such a reintroduction, I feel, of a massive increase in the most mucus forming diets we have, which also karmically not great, and that's these meat heavy carnivore based diets with also a side of stimulants from coffee.
Yeah, I mean it's tragic, but it's not new. And Arnold Ehret even talked about the one-sided meat diets and so
Mm,
many of these little fads, they reinvent themselves and every 5, 10, 20 years, the same thing comes back around. Arnold Ehret was talking about the old fad of the milk diet. And
that's
then
right.
years later, it's like, well, they've been selling Slim Fast and all these. It's basically an elaboration of a milk only type of diet. People I mean, I've met people that are like, I did the beer and white bread fast. And I mean, I've literally had somebody tell me that they fasted, they considered that a fast, or they ate nothing but white bread and drank beer. I mean, but that's the level of delusion that humans get into, and because where our brains are wired for novelty, and that's one of the reasons people get hooked on all these fads, because oh, here's something new, oh, that sounds interesting, and they have no ability to focus, and part of that
Mm.
is being constipated, being stimulated by all of these. You got the pus and mucus forming foods, and so when we're talking about carnivore, that's pus forming. The difference between pus and mucus, when you use that type of definition, all pus forming foods are mucus forming,
Yeah.
but not all mucus forming foods are pus forming.
Yeah.
So the pus forming foods signify specifically dead animal tissue or the secretions of animals that have blood is involved in some way, where it either came from blood or you have tissues that were immersed in blood. But these things tend to disintegrate down into a very viscous slime that we call pus. So it's not
Mm.
necessarily within this context, uh, we're not necessarily talking about infected tissue, even though most of the meat that people eat, there was some infected cancer on that animal someplace, and you're eating it when you chop it up and put it into your sausage and that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
but yeah, this little fad you had I mean, just you start looking at case studies, and we've been around long enough. We already know where this is going. So years ago, I saw that idiot, the so-called Liver King, and he's come in and he's all getting popular. I'm like, this is gonna end really, really badly, because this is just straight psychopath type of
Mm.
energy happening here, and this is gonna be ridiculous. And everybody knows like he was trying to say he's not on steroids, and it's like, come on now, like
Yeah.
you don't even have to tell it. Like we know what's happening. And
Mm.
then that comes out, and it's like, oh, you lied to us, and this kind of stuff. But then recently he's arrested. And I don't know if you'd seen this, if that kind of news made its way over where you're at, but
I think there was a documentary on it exposing
was
that.
there.
Yeah, yeah, on Netflix, I think. My brother told me
Okay.
about it. Mm.
Well, the dude, I mean, he got arrested because he was stalking Joe Rogan. He literally
Wow.
came into Joe Rogan's city, and he's doing vlogs talking about how he wants to fight Joe Rogan, and he's gonna go, like, he's in town to look for him. And it was like, you can't do that. That's like, it's threatening
Wow.
somebody. You need to
Yeah.
do, and I think he was armed. He had a gun on him and stuff, so he ended up getting arrested, and it was a fiasco. He starts talking, and he just sounds insane. And I'm
Mm.
trying to show people like this is like this is who you're following, this is who you're looking up to, this psychopath over here that's just sick and constipated and so toxic and acidic, and
Mm.
looks like he's 10 or 20 years older than he is. It's like
Mm.
this is not the path. But again, humans are attracted to novelty, and like, oh,
Mm.
it's new, oh, people are doing it, and you start to see, oh, the marketing is with it, and folks
Mm.
see the testimonials, and so I've eaten nothing but raw meat for the past however long, and I feel so great, and this and that, and it's just
Mm.
all that stuff is temporary. It's what Eric calls a camouflage fast. So oftentimes, if you
Mm.
have a particular type of diet and you make any change, drastic change in any direction, it's going to shock the body. And in doing so, there's certain things that can shift or things that appear to heal. But then 6 months later, or however long later, all of a sudden, oops, you've lost the ability to have natural bowel movements. Sorry. Or oops, you got diagnosed with some type of C word. Sorry.
Mhm.
Acidosis, run amok. And that's the problem with that. And then all I got to say to the carnivore people is this is what's up in you right here. This
Yeah.
if you're not doing what we're talking about, you got 32 feet of just straight pus slime just up in you. And this
No.
stuff gets acidic. So one thing that people don't understand is you have constipation and you have acidosis. And the constipation comes first, but then because this stuff can't leave the body, the acidosis starts to set in. And as Dr. Morris always says, there's two sides of chemistry. If you have the acid side and not the alkaline side, and just your whole body is imbued with acids, and especially if it's localized in a particular area, say it's localized by a gland or an organ, it's going to start to damage those cells. And once they start to damage the cells, they have words, scary diagnosis for that phenomenon.
For
And
that symptom, yeah.
and that's what's in store for people that want to go down that path and mess
Mm,
around and like, check that out. And there is something to be said where some people there's some people that can eat that way a little bit longer and have less because of the history of their stomach.
mm,
Because in order to eat like that, you have to be fairly constipated, well, not just constipated, but physiologically, it helps if you come from a background of people that have tried to eat like that, like a bloodline that's a little more into that
mm,
way of eating. But we're talking Neanderthal. We're talking that's a way to eat humanity into extinction
mm.
versus because I always tell people we're not as special as we think. There's a whole bunch of other humanoid
Yeah,
species
yeah,
that went extinct. Why do
yeah,
we think we're so special that if we don't do what we're supposed to do in nature, we're not gonna that Mother Nature's not gonna take us out?
yeah.
We're on the chopping block and people don't even know it. So yeah, you can eat like your Neanderthal uncle if you want, but your bloodline will be extinct. And
Mm,
it's so the choice is yours.
mm, mm. And there's something as well that people don't realize, and I think this is again, you pointed out the thing with Liver King, is this sort of psychotic strangeness that emanates from them, and it's always in the presence of people that focus on eating flesh. There's like this aggression, this weird psychosis, and that this is the direct state of the condition of your body and what your body's dealing with. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've seen in even Western data, is that every main it's not that everyone that eats meat is going to be a serial killer, but there's this correlation that people that have done heinous things have insane amount of parasites in their gut. That you see people that are hangry. There's videos all over the internet of people losing control when they have to have some sort of mucus, which is always going to be a pus forming, and you articulated that beautifully. That it's beyond mucus forming. There's mucus and pus, but as you said, not every mucus forming food is pus forming. It's those animal excretions within the flesh that really take that to the next level, if not heavily refined pastries, I believe as well, and margarines and stuff like that.
Right, right.
But exactly this sort of it's in a very simplistic sense, it's the effect of the cause. Like you're going to reap what you sow. What are you sowing in your body? Is it a stagnation cesspool? Is your body a graveyard of animals, or is it a well-moving, well-eliminating machine? And to unstagnate that, you can see all manner of things, emotional detoxification. You can see the releasing of every time you've emotionally eaten with something, you have to relive that again. That comes out again, surrendering to that. A lot of people don't realize that when you're undoing what you've done, it's like getting knots out of a rope that should be just this nice rope, but it's this knotted mess. Um, and I had to get these from behind me. But this book, in hand in hand with Mucusless Diet Healing System, this has shown you how to rationally fast, not just going any full can fast, but it takes a wise person to break a fast. And I learned that the hard way years ago. And then I did a proper fast, and I know that even though Arnold Ehret did had the longest world record for monitored fast, me as a practitioner of trained by Dr. Mawson, a big follower, and I wouldn't say I'm a practitioner yet of the Mucusless Diet Healing System, but maybe I am in many ways because I do have that for virtually every client I have. Is at any point when the fruit and these things are getting too much, we got to get down to the hierarchy of what our body's saying right now, and the mucusless system shows us that it's not about this aggressive, okay, oh, that means I have to now do, if Jesus fasted for 40 days, I should go and fast for 40 days now. Like, no way. We're not recommending that. These are great tools and guidelines to help you, but knowing, as you said, the ancestral line, the genetic line that you're dealing with, their cells may be used to that kind of pus and toxicity, that slow, stagnating energy of those foods compared to someone that's lived on more vegetarian diets. And there's always a connection with the parasites. And it's the same with, I have clients with viral loads all the time coming to me, and that's, how do I clean up the lymph? How do I clean up the body from any viral load? And that takes time. And there's now some great medical testing you can use to actually do blood analysis and see the viral load literally just dissipate over time. And and even without that, knowing that your body wants to heal, your body wants what's ultimately called homeostasis. And I think as well, something I've seen in the carnivore world is there's this illusion of health on a temporary basis. And the word temporary is very important because there's some big players, I would say, in the push for carnivore diets. And this isn't to hate on them. This is just to bring light to the situation. But Jordan Peterson and his daughter, Michaela, they are, I would say Jordan Peterson's less of an advocate. I've never heard him tell people to do that. I'm not going to put
Mm,
words in his mouth, but he talks about the benefits he'd experienced. But anyone
right.
that's aware now, he's experiencing serious neurological problems and his life well could be on the line. And I know his daughter stated on an interview, I believe, with Piers Morgan, that she said there's negative entities at play, that this is a mold problem and negative entities. And I would like to touch on that because from an Rudolf Steiner perspective, from an Arnold Ehret perspective, I'm a big follower of anthroposophy and Rudolf Steiner, who has actually a lot to say about the temperaments and the energy of things and the interconnected relationship of that. And that parasites technically aren't even animal or insect; they're an entity of their own. And how that, yes, in that sense, religious people may think dark entities mean like Satan or whatever they're thinking, but really, when we translate that into the physical world, what is that? What is a serpent? What is a parasite? And what are they doing? And why are they there? They're actually, there's parasites that are drawing from us, but then also, why would there be a high amount of bacterium or a high amount of parasites in an area? They're eating that waste. They're living on that waste that is stagnating in the cesspool of our human bodies. And it's my opinion that's why we're seeing that happen. I was waiting for that time when these kind of things would happen, and I've seen it more. Infiltrated some friends of mine that have infiltrated some carnivore groups, and people having all manner of crazy symptoms happen that they're telling them are fine. Neurological problems. There's even Paul Saladino now, who was a big pusher of the carnivore diet, went on the doctor's show. He's like, this is the best thing. You got to do this. He then started getting neuropathy, mental problems. He had endocrinology problems from memory. And now he promotes this new animal-based diet that everyone's pushing, which is fruit with a heavy diet of fruit with meat. And I
Mm,
find this very amusing because the fruit, I feel, is helping them have bowel movements, but then they're getting the stimulation from the meat. So there's this illusion of this is the best thing ever. And then, of course, they just start pumping the weights and start thinking, now I've got the ultimate. And it always makes me chuckle when I see these things because there's some new thing that comes in. As you said, you made that point before, that none of this is actually new. We just seen it cycle like a season of illusion coming in again. It's just another round. And I think what we see now, we have methylene blue. We've got all these weird, one moment it was vitamin D, this certain type of vitamin C. It's some new thing is going to come up. And if you fully understand a system, understand what nature is asking of you, what your body is asking of you, you can't be swayed. And that is why the importance of these
yeah.
books that Spira has so uh, eloquently annotated, revised, brought modern clarity to. I have a friend of mine that got rational fasting, the original, and I said, no, get Spira's version because there's some phrases that Arnold Ehret uses that are very old fashioned, that a lot of people just can't resonate with. And that's why, man, that what you've done with those books is an absolute godsend, purely because it's giving you this that mucusless diet healing system is out of all the books is the most fundamental one. But once you have these tools and you have this knowing, you can't be swayed. You can't be pushed off. Like when these things come up, you and I aren't going, should we consider a meat diet? Maybe we should be consuming raw eggs with orange juice or whatever, and maybe
Whatever
live a,
they're doing. Yeah.
yeah, because there's a deeper knowing and an understanding of the system. And I think that sort of gets me into the next part, and that is what are some of the things that we are seeing that are not seeing the forest for the trees. And it sort of reminds me, Spira, of there was a video you did a few years ago, and you covered what your transition diet looked like over the course of, I believe it was 20 years. And maybe if
Yeah.
you could touch into that and into the bigger picture of, yeah, maybe right now it means a bean burrito with a salad because I'm coming off a heavy meat diet versus, I'm just going to do a fruit and then you're literally. So if we could touch in on that. I think we dropped out for a sec there, but
Yeah, you're
um,
back now.
we're back. Yeah, what I was saying is the importance of the transition, and you out of anyone has got over 20 years of this transition diet, and what
Yeah.
that can look like. Things you came up against, perhaps, knowing that you weren't just 100% fruit is what I got to do, and what that system actually looks like in a practical sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, after I've seen what a lot of people go through over the years in the different raw food camps, and I've seen a lot of these things come and go, and folks raw food, then they convert into carnivore, then they come back, and I mean, I'm just so kind of just grizzled and wore, I've just seen this, been in
War
this
torn.
thing so long and just seen this
Yeah.
over and over again. And I'm so thankful that I had the transition diet from the beginning. So my orientation was based on the Mucusless Diet Healing System from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So so I didn't have guilt when, as you said, mentioned there, the bean burritos. That was a big transitional tool for me in those early
Yeah.
years. Make a bean burrito and put a bunch of vegetables in it, or steam or saute some vegetables. I always have a real big salad. I'd have a really big vegetable meal, but it was 100% better from what I was eating before. It was
Yeah.
100% better than double pepperoni, extra cheese, and bacon pizza and cheese chili jogs, cheese conies, and the cheeseburgers, all the stuff I was eating before. A bean burrito with a big salad and some steamed greens or broccoli is a lot better. So, like I say, not all cooked food is created equal, and depending
Mm.
on where you are in your journey, those tools can be really effective. And the video you're talking about is it's what I eat in a day on the Mucusless Diet Healing System.
Yeah.
It is like a very long, it's 3.5 hour video where some people are like, "Well, how does it take you so long to talk about what you eat in a day?" It's because I actually talk about what I ate in a day over the past 20 years because it
Yeah.
changes and evolves. And
Hmm.
that is the key, the strategic piece of this, where you don't have to get to where you're going overnight or immediately. This is as I was use the term physiological liberation. This is a way to totally transform yourself, body, mind, and spirit, and to
Mm.
do it in a very real way, not fake, not people throw that kind of rhetoric around. I'm saying, no, you're really, if you get on this path, you're going to transition body, mind, and spirit. You want that to happen slowly. Because another thing that I see happen to people is sometimes they'll think that they want to go fast, and their body, they start being real more aggressive. And when I say aggressive, that's the all fruit and the long fasting periods, and no, if you feel like you need to eat something grounding, you kind of grit your teeth through it and that kind of stuff. What ends up happening is those those folks generally will, I say, fall off the wagon. They, especially when they don't know about the transition diet, they end up going back to really whatever they eat before, usually just really bad foods. And so even if they spend a period of time trying to eat all fruit and maybe they're working a system to try to heal themselves with some herbs and fruit and that kind of thing, and they get to a point where they need they really need a reset. They just hit the reset button on the body with a salad or some steamed greens or baked zucchini or something. Just you don't have to eat that for a long time, but hit the reset button. But that is the kind of nuance that the mucusless diet brings to the table that nobody else talks about except us.
Mm.
And it's such a game changer. It's like I've worked with a number of people working with some of the Morse protocols, but then if they need to slow it down, they're not really quite sure where to go, and that's where I kind of
Mm.
come and I'm like, hey, check this out.
Mm.
This is a good, there's some things that you can eat in here that's better than even go, because this is where sometimes the raw food community will be mad at me because I say I'd rather somebody eat some steamed greens or some cooked, baked zucchini than to
Mm.
have two or three avocados. Where I've seen people, and I'm not saying you can't use avocados in your transition. I'm saying it's not a good idea to make a meal out of like five or six of them, which is what's his name was doing. The guy that became the Nikocado avocado was in I mean he's a heck of a case study because he was literally in the Dr. Morris community in like
Mm.
2015 or 16 or whatever.
Mm.
And so before he lost his mind and became the greatest glutton on the planet, he he would I even responded to him one time because he was talking about I don't really feel good, but I had six avocados today, and but that's how he ate. He would literally he's like I'm raw, but he was eating all these avocados, and avocados are mucus forming for people that don't know. They're very slime. You eat out some avocados, and if you have a bowel movement, you're probably gonna have to wipe. There's that slime residue there.
Mm.
When you eat mucus free and you're relatively clean, you notice there's really nothing to wipe
Yeah.
after you go. There's not a whole bunch of wiping that you have to do as it's supposed to be. We're supposed to be clean
Yeah.
because toilet paper as an invention hasn't been around that long. But I can
Mm.
imagine before, with the level of constipation people had before, that was a pretty good invention to make. But the cleaner you get, you don't need it. The less you
Mm.
really need of any of that kind of stuff. But that's some of the way that you can see, you start to really see that which foods leave behind that slimy residue
Yeah.
and which food, just to break it down, because we don't need to talk with all kinds of, there's some people that like to get into these real complicated like low glycemic index and my
Oh God.
B12, they want to just talk with all this jargon. And I'm like, look,
Mm.
this is as simple as when you eat something, you go to the bowel movement and observe. If you find yourself wiping a bunch and there's all this residue,
Mm.
you've been eating mucus forming foods and you
Mm.
need to probably clean yourself out because we're not supposed to
Mm.
have that.
Mm.
And enough of that stuff builds up over time. And here we go with the influx of colon cancers, the influx of different tumors, and all these kinds of things. It's not a coincidence. It's not a mystery. Look no further than what people are eating, what people are
Mm.
putting in their body, and mystery is solved. We just solved it right here today on this podcast. We
Mm.
solved the mystery of
Mm.
all this
And I
disease.
think, and it was even resolved by, I think, was it Hippocrates? Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. What Spira
Yeah.
was just saying is literally that. That if it's clean as it comes out, it cannot have a negative effect. It cannot stagnate and slow down. And I remember in Dr. Morse's coursework, he was showing that. He said the exact same thing you said. You observe your stools. straight away. We have the tongue as well, the reflection of the gut, how your tongue
The
looks. Chinese
tongue,
medicine
yeah,
uses it.
the
This the
urine.
urine. We have these just very easy to understand, easy to see, and that's the thing, as you mentioned before, two sides of chemistry. We've got blood feeds cells, lymph cleans it away, it takes away the waste, and then you've got the electrical department. That's the energy. We've got adrenal glands for that. Very simple stuff when you really start to get down to it. What the challenge is dealing with someone's mind that thinks that it should be more complicated than it is. As you
Right.
said, well, what about B12? What about this? What about the fact that none of that actually really matters? We've got to see how these things eliminate. And people that think they have one or two bowel movements a day, they think, well, I eat the steak, I eat the sandwiches, I eat the dairy coffees, blah, 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 and I still have these bowel movements thinking that they are eliminating everything they're consuming. Well, a great test for that is just go and pop yourself on a little a juice cleanse, transition your way in, and have a look what happens. You're going to have bowel movements beyond the consumption of food because there's still waste in the gut that needs to come out. And that's further down the line, people that have experienced that, they can testify, me being one of them, you're likely one of them as well, where you see the very nature that your body has been in. And just a little connection back to a lot of people use religious justification now along with this carnivore thing. And you mentioned something before about body, mind, and spirit. And I took a note of this, and it's really important that if people are followers of Jesus, for example, he spoke of the threefold peace. And the threefold peace is pretty detailed in the Essene Gospel of Peace, but it's also been brought up in the Bible and other Dead Sea Scrolls throughout time. And that's, again, body, mind, spirit, and breath. You know, we can't live, we can live without food, we can live without water, we can't live without breathing. And so it really boils down to that. I know you've spoken on this many times, Spira, and the importance of this. And these things are very simple to understand. But again, we're dealing with heavily intellectual beings that are relying on intellect alone to guide them, which I feel is extremely misleading. Rudolf Steiner spoke of this, that the intellectual mind would be a massive detriment to humanity's growth and change, because if you rely on a study, if you rely on some sort of I'm waiting to hear something intellectual to make me change my decision, you'll be waiting forever, because you can find a justification for anything. But once we understand there's a system of elimination, it's now beyond that. And people, I see it with clients frequently, they struggle to accept that. And
Yes.
I was one of them. I struggled to accept that. And you made a really good point at the beginning, because I had to bring up the bean burrito because I was aware that that was a transitionary item for you. And that I've had clients come from other practitioners in Morse's world that were never given that allowance. They were never given that okay. And when they came to me, they said, "Wait, your website's raw generate, but you're not recommending 100% raw diet." And I said, "No, because raw is ultimately the raw truth of the matter as well. It's like the raw truth of the matter is that your body's stagnated, and we need to transition it onto this. And yeah, if you're dealing with this tumor, I may go more aggressively here, and that's a different thing outside of the
Yeah.
transition. Once we're done with that, then we can go back to this transition diet. And sometimes we need to do that depending if the person, the clock's ticking for them. But if they're not, then why would I go and put you in more harm's way? Why would I suggest that?" And this is where the lack of some of these practitioners, which is a sad state. Dr. Morse is aware of it, his team is aware of it, and it reflects, he brings it onto himself a lot of the time. Like, what am I doing as a teacher here getting wrong? And I think people overlook, and we discussed this in our first episode a couple of years back, that I've been in some groups since that I'm no longer really a part of, because I can't deal with it. Is if you bring in Arnold Ehret, or if I go and tag your Amazon link for your book, it's removed, it's deleted,
Mm.
and I'm there going, wait, what? This is a Dr. Morse group, and I'm like, yeah, but Dr. Morse is a student of Arnold Ehret. He learned
Yeah.
so much from
He
Arnold Ehret.
sells Mucusless Diet in his clinic.
Yeah, exactly. And he promotes his practitioners to do further research into the forefathers that paved the way till now. You know, I'm not I'm not going to read Rational Fasting and then go, yeah, great book, but I don't want to do that. My intuition tells me I should do a 40-day water fast. That's ridiculous. Oh, because I read something that, Jesus said that, fast every day is a year of your life. So if you're 40 years of age, go and fast. I've seen people do that. They hold fast to that, and they cannot be waved off of it, not understanding they've been on medications, stagnating foods that the times of Jesus weren't even exposed to. We've got to look at that. That's over 2,000 years ago when he supposedly was around. So and that's ignoring a rational system. And I think what people can glean from the conversation we're having here is that there's ultimately no rush, that there's once you understand these principles, you can't unknow them. And if you have swayed off down carnivore land, and you still have that knowing, you can always come back because these things can pull you hard. Parasites can take away reason. They can pull you into states of yeah, just irrational action ultimately. And you're seeing this in this day and age to a such great degree that it's mind blowing. And you mentioned something really amusing about the wiping and not seeing any waste, and that sort of gets me into really. I have the book behind me, but I've lost it. It's the yellow one. It's the paradise of what humanity can be like when out of the world of flesh and mucus and pus forming foods. And I'm aware that there's been cities that have been discovered, old ancient cities that had no sewer systems, that the consumption of meat, when we look into it, Spira has some good videos on this, that we pretty much cannibalism was number one, and then animal sacrifice. And you do some digging into this, and it's pretty dark and messed up what we're seeing. And the fact that there are cities that have no sewer system, that implies one or two things. One, we weren't eating. Sure, could have been breath. We could have been so advanced that food was it was this prana energy, if you will, or that the food we're eating, which is the more likely one, we weren't eating flesh. We you could go to a permaculture place like where I am now. This guy's growing fruit and herbs and vegetables everywhere. You can use the human waste, that of plants that comes out of your body, to fertilize the ground. You can't do that with carnivore feces. Even people that eat meat that work in regenerative practice know that you can't have a highly acidic soil, know that you cannot use carnivore manure, so to speak. Uh, and I think this is, we could go in so many different directions here, but Spira, I think maybe perhaps going into Arnold Ehret's book that you revise and put the yellow one of this. It's the religious. I've got the title. You can.
Physical fitness.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. And what this fascinates me in ways beyond intellect. It's more like I wonder, and I can see like, wow, if we were living this way, humanity would be in a very different state. And it's my opinion that we were there at one point. We've got a lot of historical records. If there was the Hellenic period of the Greeks, there were people that supposedly ate oranges and were living on oranges and figs or oranges and dates, lived a very long period of time. And we've even got modern uh, geneticists talking about the telomeres, just literally that we aren't living as long. And you go, well, why would we not be? Well, look at what we're doing, and what this could look like, and coming out of this stagnation, because it's not only a stagnation of diet and physiology, it's a stagnation of humanity's action, humanity's state of being, and that are we are we going to see wars and fighting and bombing one another from a mucusless diet? I don't think so, and why that would be so. And if you could expound on that, Spirit, that'd be amazing because you've covered that book before. And I believe as well, it's very unknown. We can no longer find a copy of it. You're the only your revised edition, and it's the yellow cover of a book that looks like this. And a lot of people aren't aware of it. A lot of people aren't aware that Arnold Ehret was speaking of this. But it makes perfect sense why he was.
Yeah, yeah, and that's one of the most advanced, yeah, the book. So the whole title is a long title,
Yep,
the physical fitness through superior diet, fasting, and dietetics, and also a religious concept of physical, spiritual, and
yep,
mental dietetics. And that is, I mean, that's an amazing, it's an
yep.
advanced book, but it's so just dense with wisdom and just whole, but it creates the vision, or not creates, but elucidates the vision of a rational humanity. What's our species specific diet?
Hmm.
How are we supposed to live and operate?
Hmm.
And what if we did that? You know, there's the Bible, but there's other traditions that have paradise, golden age myths or paradise myths. There's the Garden of Eden, but then there's these times when humans didn't die, or lived these really long lives, and there wasn't the kind of pain and suffering that we have today. And then oftentimes the fall of humanity is signaled by some kind of eating process, of eating of something.
Mm.
And then now you have the fall, you have the knowledge of good and evil, and that type of thing. To me, that's somebody ate some mucus, or they put their body on a trajectory to where it was going in that direction. And so the way that I interpret, you talk about the Bible, look at Genesis 129, that rule still applies.
Yeah.
Our As humans, nothing has changed from the standpoint of like there was hocus pocus and now you're meat eaters. It's like, no, we have the same bodies and physiology at the foundation of Genesis 129. Eat your food is fruit. Then and this gets people because I'm like, look, 129 says humans are to eat fruit. That's our diet. 130 says that animals are to eat vegetation, to eat the vegetables. So nobody's left out. Humans eat fruit,
Mm.
animals eat vegetables. That's it. Nobody's eating other animals. When you have the crown of creation, which is humans, fall, it throws everything out of balance.
Mm.
Yeah, you'll have animals going crazy, and people say, well, that's natural. They're supposed to eat that. No, and you can find, even in our weird pus-drenched world, you can find videos of some of these animal sanctuaries where all the animals and the humans are all living together in harmony, and that
Mm.
kind of thing. And it's like, that reality is there, but it's got to be based on, for it to have longevity, it has to be based on a mucus-free existence. It's not going to come out of some type of, it's definitely not going to come out of this carnivore, the
No.
carnivore kind of reality. But
Yeah.
but yeah, now that particular book, yeah, I definitely recommend checking that out if you're ready.
Yeah. Definitely if you're ready, because I think the beauty of it is it shows what where humanity could be outside of where we are now. And the reason why I think it's really helpful is you have group coaching. I'm working on this at the moment as well. And the reason why this is so important with online communities is it's so easy it's pretty much you feel alone from the word go because you're doing the opposite of what other people are doing. And that's where it really tests your courage, and it tests your knowing and what you're doing. And when you started off, you'd be doing enemas in public bathrooms if you had to. You'd be doing whatever you do what you need to do. And I think a really great uh, lesson outside of religious groups that even those that are still eating flesh still acknowledge is that courage and faith to do what you know is right. But outside of the diet, outside of those things, the diet is forgotten. That there's this fundamental that has been forgotten, and which is almost the most common sense, but it's why nothing is really changing because there's this stagnation still lost in, oh no, we have dominion over the animals, somehow believing that dominion means slaughter, um, and it means to consume. And uh, I really felt when I read that book, just like when I read the Essene Gospel, that it gave me even though there weren't as many people doing the transition diet, looking at mucusless foods, and you have discussions with people that are supposedly open and aware with things, but the next thing they say, do you want to go fishing or do you want to go and do this? And then you're going, I don't do that actually, man. Or do you want to go drink and go to the pub? I don't do that. When you read these words, it hits something deeper in you that, well, this is where we're going, and this is why I'm not going to be pulled off the wagon, though you may fall off the wagon at times. Books like that, they really, I think, strike a chord of the bigger picture of where we're going, and I think that's a beautiful thing to just have an awareness of and knowing of, well, this is where this is going. It's not a means to an end. It's an uplifting of humanity. And I believe we spoke last time about people's reasons for doing this. People get very me focused. Like, I'm doing this, it's me, blah blah blah. And you go, whoa. Wait a minute. This is beyond actually you.
Hmm.
And I've seen this. I've used this angle with clients, which has helped them a lot. They might not give a toss about how their health is. They might not care, but they want to see their kids grow up. They want to see their kids graduate. They want to see whatever it is. It's generally to do with their kids or family. And that's really the fundamental reason is as we get cleaner on an emotional level, a spiritual level, and a physical level, our kids and their kids aren't going to have McDonald's and KFC around. They're not going to be in a group with people discussing those things or having discussions from a frequency of consuming flesh. Where a big problem in Australia is the drinking and barbecue culture. It pretty much is the breath of this country,
Mm.
and it's people just assume if you're a male that you're going to be doing that. They go, oh,
Right,
yeah, young
right.
guys doing this, and no, like that's not what we're doing here. And books like that, though they are advanced, uh, I've seen them be a great remedy to keep people on track as well when they lose their way, other than listening to conversations like this or other people's testimonials and just being reminded again, because at the end of the day, there are forces pulling you in the opposite direction of where you want to go because the world isn't currently conducive of your healing and of your betterment. It's the polar opposite of that, and it's very apparent. You don't really need any study for that. You just go outside into an average town, and you will see exactly what's going on. Um, and that I feel is a great rounding off of of why the transition diet's so important. Because when we look at the transition as a humanity, we're no longer just looking at me in the next 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, the rest of my life, how many years, but we're looking at, well, then when my kids, when I'm gone, I've brought them up in this way and they've got friends and family doing this, and the conversation's changed. What we're consuming has changed. How is that going to look in 2, 3 generations? And then we can see the detoxification or the releasing of generational trauma through food. Like, do you come from a background of hunting and men hunt and we do this, and you're only a man if you do this, or you're only a good person, or you've only lived if you've done X, Y, and Z, and you need to have skinned an animal, and you need to eat meat to become a man, put hair on your chest, whatever the dialogue is, and that now that's not even a concept. And it can be a very foreign idea for people because uh, I see it time and time again, often with female clients. Most of my clients are female because it tends to be that women somehow care more about their health than males. But I've seen that men actually do. They just think they're not cool, or that it's not okay for them to do that. But people with partners, one of them's on a carnivore, eating, drinking, pies and whatnot, and then they're over here going, I want to get rid of my problems, and I found the Mucusless Diet Healing System. I found raw foods. I found the pros of sweet potato and baked fruit and veg. And I want to be doing
Right.
this, but the person I'm with, like, we have to let go of a lot of things. We can choose to see how we can contend with that, but at the end of the day, things are frequencies, and if these people are pulling you away, there's going to be a shedding that's going to happen, and maybe that's happened to you, Spira, that there have been things that have fallen by the wayside that no longer mattered anymore.
Oh,
That
well,
I
I
bet.
mean, almost, most things, of the, value systems. I mean, that's everything change, all the stuff that you think is important, that you grew up and were conditioned to believe that the material mythology, I want to go by, it's like you go from, I want to get a Bugatti to let me buy some apple trees. Let me buy a mango tree and plant it. Let me get some property, or let me move someplace that has a plethora of mango trees. Your whole value system changes, as it should, because now you're prioritizing what I call physiological liberation.
Mm,
What that means is you eat your way to freedom. To
mm,
first, you have to understand that you're a slave. You're eating a slave diet. When you're eating pus and mucus forming foods, you're a slave. Just
mm,
And we're there. And this is
Mm.
your opportunity. This is your Harriet Tubman. We're here and we're saying, look, because when you were talking about speed earlier, here's something that people find interesting. So for me, you have no time to waste to get on the path. So when people
Mm.
see my urgency and I'm like, man, there's no time to waste. There's no, well, let me think about this. And it's like, no, you need to come now. Just as historically here in the United States, when somebody like Harriet Tubman showed up to save slaves on a plantation, you didn't
Mm.
get days to let me think about it. You're coming now and you're
Mm.
gonna take a chance to move to freedom, or you're just gonna stay there and remain a slave. And so so many people are, and this is the same stuff talked about whether you the Matrix or uh, Plato's cave or whatever. It's
Yeah.
like this is that same theme of people that prefer their servitude and their being enslaved than freedom. They're
Mm.
scared of freedom. They're scared to come up out of that. And
Mm.
but that's what I mean when I say transformation, body, mind, and spirit is I see a lot of people that are not ready. They don't they think that I'm playing around when I say that. And then things come up that are going to fundamentally transform who they think they are. Because a big part of
Mm.
this, the foundation, know thyself, and you start to really get to know all the good, the bad, and the ugly of yourself. And a lot of people can't handle that. They start to
Mm.
freak out because you're seeing things, observing things that you were eating and drinking prior in such a way that it stifled your ability to perceive these things. And so, because once you're hopped up on your coffee, and your alcohol, and kratom or whatever people are doing, you're hopped up on that, and then folks want to get some smoke something and all this kind of stuff. There's no point where you get grounded, and most people
Mm.
don't even know what it's like to be sober. You don't
Mm.
know because if you've been eating pus and mucus forming foods, drinking all the whatever coffees and eating the chocolates and doing all this
Mm.
kind of stuff, and you've never had a rational fast, you've never been sober. You don't we nobody has met the real you. But what happens is people get off those stimulants and their energy level gets low because now you're actually seeing where you are really, and they don't like it. They're like, oh, I don't, well, you're people getting off of heroin don't like that either. People getting off of cocaine don't like that. But that's what this is. You're getting off of the most addictive, worst drug,
Yeah.
gateway drug in the world, which is pus and mucus forming foods.
Mm.
A lot of work to do, but I've made a number of videos now on social dynamics, like you mentioned before, the importance of us creating these communities where people can come together and have that
Mm.
support system.
Yeah.
Because one of the number one reasons that people fail on this path which I've observed time and time again, is the social part.
Yeah.
It just
Massive.
it's like they're starting to change their diet, they're feeling better, they're healing ailments, everything along the diet side is good, but then they get an invitation to go to the bar, the club, the restaurant, as you were mentioning, the significant other is doing something else, and
Yeah.
and that creates this chaos in your world. And unless you have a really strong, because my thing was I made a pact with myself where I refused to fail based on social pressures and social dynamics. So I opened up the possibility that I could fail, but I guaranteed to myself it wouldn't be because of some ego issue. or feeling bad because I turned somebody down or somebody offered me some type of food and oh, I want to be polite. Like, no, like I just no, we're not playing that game.
Mm,
And that's served me very well. I've just noticed that I mean, if anybody can listen to this, if you can download some of that energy, then you're happy, you're free to do so. I'm happy to
mhm,
provide that. But I've just found that for whatever reason, that's like a real sticking point for people where
mm,
they have trouble telling people no. They have trouble, they don't want to be ostracized from the group or feel out of place or whatever.
mm,
And to me, it's do you want to live or not? It's what's sad to me is there are this is and it's actually, I mean, it's really sad because there are people that would rather die at the hands of a doctor, that because the social dynamic, that there's permission there.
mm,
There's permission for this doctor to take you out, and nobody's gonna have a problem with it,
mm,
versus getting on this path and you have no support from your family and friends. There's no social conditioning that supports you, because when you get a diagnosis, a bad diagnosis from a doctor, and then everybody comes and they're hugging you and you decide I'm going to go through with the surgery, I'm going to fight this, and they've created a whole industry based on killing people at the right speed so that they can collect some insurance monies. And I mean, it's don't even get me started on the system, the medical system and that kind of stuff. We'll get demonetized and the video will get taken down. So I won't even go down that road too much. But the point is that it's the social conditioning is so deep that if you decide to take your health into your own hands, you have to be ready to not have any loved ones support you. They're
mm,
gonna be scared for you. They're gonna be like, no, you should get the surgery. No, you should do the chemo. No, don't. What are you doing? This is dangerous. And and you're gonna hit this onslaught of all of this, and yet you will have seen the many testimonials of people that have done this work and have overcome any number of different ailments and issues, and then you're thinking to yourself, well, if they did it, why can't I do it? We
mm.
know what happens to people that go the route of taking poison versus this other direction where people are surviving. So it's
Mm.
like, and but my thing is that social piece that
Yeah.
really bothers me, that they really give these doctors this like treatment like they're Catholic priests back in the day, where it's like avert your
Mm.
eyes, kiss the ring,
Yeah.
genuflect and cower. And I'm just like, nah, no thank
No.
you.
And I've experienced that recently with my grandmother being in the emergency room, or what in Australia is called the ICU, which is the intensive care unit. And I had listened to recordings from the nurse and the doctor that came in that my mother had recorded.
Mm,
At that time, it was Easter actually. I had my friend over. He's a medical nurse. He works in oncology, which is a depressing place. That's post chemo treatment, just so anyone is not aware. And he sees a lot of people dying. And I do, on a side note, he's got a friend, a nurse friend of his that's been in that hospital, I believe, for like 35 years.
mm,
And she's said to him before, what are we doing here? Like nothing's changing. And yet they still turn up. You got a good salary, good support, it's just your job. But because my friend's sensitive and aware, he's always talking about going and leaving, but breaking that and getting out is has been hard for him. But what was an eye opener for me, I already knew, coming from the background of being in hospital, them testing on me, not knowing what was wrong with me, doing things against my mother's consent, uh, from pretty much I think 15 months of age, it just that there's a system in place that is directly there to, as you said, unfortunately, is, a payout from uh, either your organs, organ donors, a lot of money from that. People don't realize, if you've acknowledged that and accepted that if you pass, that they can sell your organs. And there's a lot of dark things in relation to that I encourage anyone to research. But one of which is the simple nature that when you come in, the first thing they're going to do is draw your blood. They're going to see what bacteria responds with that. In the meantime, they're going to, at least in Australia, they're then going to prescribe a broad spectrum antibiotic until they get within about 2 days the blood results back. Then they're going
Really?
to
Like immediately?
pretty much from the word
Oh
go.
wow. Man,
Yep,
no, well,
this is
I think
wild.
they do
And
that
it,
here. They usually just give you the saline drip if you're in the emergency room. They'll get you on a saline drip and check everything, but don't
yep,
necessarily immediately give you an antibiotic, as far as I know.
what what's going to happen? They'll ask you, and if you just go, yes, doc, it's all good. They're going to do that. Then in about 2 days, you're going to get a more specific, aggressive one for whatever bacterium they find. And anyone that's aware of the bacteria side of things, it's like seeing bacterium in urine. I've dealt with a medical doctor before who was all up in arms about a client having bacterium in their urine, and I reminded him that there's bacterium in the lymph nodes, and that there has to be a level of bacterium in your urine because it's breaking down waste. And it accused me as well of the iridology being like a scam. And I said, look, it's not perfect, mate, but I saw what you saw without having to put your patient through radiation. That's a massive win. And he was like, oh, yeah, true, I guess. Otherwise, it was just a really good guess from my part that happens to be a very good guess every time. And and anyway, so once they get that, and they have to do this, this is legally they have to do this. The hospitals have to.
Mm,
They have to legally do this. And then if that more specific antibiotic doesn't work, and I know this from a medical nurse, who's telling me
yeah.
why they're doing this. I'm asking him on
Mm,
the phone to him, why are they doing this? What's happening? It makes sense from their angle because they're trying to treat a problem. They then, if that doesn't work, will recommend surgery. They'll come in with a surgery solution. And they
wow.
wanted to remove my grandmother's gallbladder. There's nothing wrong with her gallbladder. And her blood pressures, mind you, she's so low that she can't really verbalize. She's on and
Mm,
off. Her numbers were in the, I believe 120 over 60 is really a typical sort of a good range, like really good range to have. But she was, I believe, the top number was less than half of that, and the bottom number was, I think, like 15 or 20. So it was incredibly low. And anyone that is in medical listening to this knows that it's pretty much a coin flip of life or death if you put someone under for surgery with blood pressures that low. I asked my mum to ask the anesthetist to have a look because the doctor said it's fine. The anesthetist said it was not. So they
mm,
never checked with the anesthetist. So they were going to put her under surgery, which pretty much would have guaranteed her death
wow.
if she'd agreed. But I was there going, I would not be doing that. And they only listened to me because my friend, who's a medical nurse, was there. Otherwise, they would have gone,
Mm,
oh, the doctor knows best. And how many times this could happen? How many times this is happening? Medical error, death by surgery. There's so much we could avoid. I believe it was Herbert Shelton said a surgeon can cut out everything but cause. And this is
mm,
that self responsibility again. If you go into a hospital, you have pretty much submitted yourself to the, oh, poor you, you've got this whatever medically named symptom, and we can do everything we can, but pretty much there's nothing for you. We'll have your family here. And a side note that was so funny is they weren't allowing flowers in the ICU because of allergens.
mm,
So you've
mm,
got these sick, dying patients that you've already said are going to die, but until we get them out of there, that they can't have anything around them, because it's going to make them worse, even though you can't help them, even though in your eyes they're done. So that's a very sad thing that there's so many. There was a lady there, 29 years of age, who died 4 weeks in, and my mother spoke to the parents there. She came in with some chest problem. They then did remove part of her organs. They suggested limb removal. Then the next thing, she was in a coma, and she died within a 4 week window, 4 to 6 week window. And of course, the family was absolutely broken up by it. And they actually said to my mum, I don't think the hospital knows what they're doing here, because my daughter didn't have these. As soon as they came in, they had these problems. And I had a discussion with my medical nurse friend, and he said the amount of disease born or disease medically acquired, I think they're called hospital acquired diseases that happen after and during treatment of being in a
mm,
hospital. They have a special category for those. So if anyone is sitting here listening right now that has had a diagnosis of a suggested surgery, I had them suggested to me for dental work, which would have resulted in them removing majority of my teeth and putting new ones in, or I could just stop the decay, what was happening from happening before from a poor stagnating diet. I would encourage you to consider whether you go for that surgery and to have do some research into the mucusless diet healing system, into regenerating yourself, because when you go down this path, it can be a hard one to get out of when your family is, as you said, no one is going to be supporting you in that. And that number one, I really feel has to be and it's really I think the crux of this conversation is that this at the beginning for majority of us is a lone wolf path. And you made some pretty big commitments to yourself, which I think are very important commitments that we have to make with ourselves when we begin anything of high value, of high importance. And there is ultimately nothing more valuable and important than taking care of this physical body, because how can we better serve each other if we're a frail, decrepit person? We can't. And Dr. Morse showed us that at the school. You know, the oxygen masks come down in a plane. If you just go straight to your child and you fumble and you mess it up, you're both dead. So you again, it's not a selfish thing. It's actually the most fundamental, which I believe it is the biggest downfall of humanity. The fact that we're here debating of a carnivore and not carnivore over this and that, and even in our world, me coming from a Dr. Morse side and Spira coming from an Arnold Ehret side, we're in the same field here. And Dr. Morse was a student of Arnold Ehret, and this is why we have to realize there is this system. And I know that Dr. Morse hasn't spoken enough of the transition system, though he's a huge fan of it. And I know that when I have spoken with him and his team, that you see it in the hierarchy of if people aren't responding well to the fruits, we've got to bring it back down. What are we introducing? Vegetables. What are we introducing? Steamed and cooked greens or cooked starchless
It's in his
vegetables.
book,
Sometimes
and they
it's it.
never
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
It's like people. I just was baffled sometimes. I talk to people that are hardcore Morris, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm certified," and I went through all his stuff, and I start talking about the steamed vegetables, and they're like, "No, never." And I'm like, "It's in his book. He patterned his menu off of Eric's. I call it the Eric Sanitarium menu, where it's
yeah.
fruit in the afternoon, vegetable meal in the evening. And if you need to have some cooked vegetables to slow some things down or to get grounded, then you do that.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it's an interesting, I mean, that's always been a quandary to me why people want to just be so adversarial. I mean, maybe it's just because it's too nuanced. It's not a sexy enough, or I don't know, but it's like people really like to hold on to a title, like, well, I'm raw and I've been raw and this, all this kind of stuff. And then, but what I've been noticing recently, folks that do the in the raw food movement doing more cooked food type of videos where they're kind of like, look, it's that not all cooked foods created equal, which is what I've been
Mhm.
saying for a very long time,
Yeah.
where it's a very different having some cooked chicken versus having some baked zucchini or a baked
Mhm.
acorn squash or something. It's not even, you're not even in the same ballpark.
Yeah. Let alone the the raw, heavily mucus forming nuts and these heavily
Oh yeah.
addictive foods that are worse in so many ways, and people are surprised. But then when I explain it to them, when I explain to a client why, they get it immediately.
Yeah.
There's very little expansion on that. There's very little you need to say. On top of that, what they want is, okay, well, what does that look like in a practical sense? What does it look like that I can make? And I had no idea how amazing baked or steamed zucchini was, until I started eating that. I just thought, wow, this is one of the I've seen clients crave something that is so far, like so much worse, and then they go and make themselves steamed or baked zucchini, and that alone has been a massive game changer. Where it kind of has this sort of buttery vibe, even though it's not.
Mhm.
It's so
Yeah.
bizarre. Even
Yeah.
though
Yeah.
it's not, it's already mucusless as it is, because it's a fruit. But then you've got some of those root vegetables. You've got so many, and there's that great link that I share to so many people. At every report I give to clients, that link is in there to the
Mm.
mucusless diet list. The list of all those things and the in between, the less mucus forming, the really mucus forming, the pus forming. We've got this wave, this spectrum here that we're looking at. And once you just contend with that, and as you said, the simplicity of testing, if you aren't sure, is just how many times you wiping with toilet paper. That's a very clear, you're going to be doing it anyway, so it's an easy way to know. Um, and I think to sort of round off this discussion, Spira, a client of mine just the other week had a really, really good motivational one-line quote that her and a friend often remind each other of, and is that when people have an idea of time for healing, which already straight off the bat just don't have that. If you can get that time frame out of it the same way with what should my weight be, what should my macro micro nutrient be, what I should go on chronometer and see what my calorie no, we
Essential fatty acids. I'm so sick and tired of hearing that.
oh no, and the other one what's the new something medicine? It's like the new age. We spoke of it last time, like not comprehensive medicine, but it's like some sort of alternative. It's got an alternative sound to it, but it's really the same thing. But it's that time, no matter what, will pass. So 6 months from now is going to be months from now, no matter what you do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you said the urgency is now. Dr. Morse has a line of, "Hey, I recommend you get on this yesterday. I recommend that you were doing this last week
Mm-hmm.
because you have right now." And that really hit me deeply, Spira, because years prior, when I was watching what other people were doing, I was getting hung up on certain concepts. I got tunnel vision, all raw, all this, all that, only juice, only water. Is this these without an understanding yet? And I can understand and empathize why people get stuck with this. Is then what happened is I just stalled. And there's I believe in America, it's called the Bill of Doubt. If they keep enough information in that's conflicting, because the internet's saturated with all manner of things, that
Mm-hmm.
whatever you've been indoctrinated with for the majority of your life, you'll default to. So for me, I just defaulted to, okay, pretty much a vegan diet, but heavily reliant on emotional suppressing with vegan burritos and caffeine, that was coffee specifically. And I found myself 6 months, a year later in the same spot. And I was thinking, if I'd heard that line then, it's like, it needs to be more extreme than that. No, it needs to be, but fruit and herbs, like, yeah, great. They're a great thing to have as part of it. And if you're in a wheelchair or the clock is ticking, we're going to deal with that differently as we discussed. But for the vast majority of people, you can make these changes right now and they're not hard. And 1 week's going to become 1 month, 1 month is going to become 1 year. And then next thing I used to have crazy psoriasis on the scalp. I would start sweating in the heat, my face would go red, the burning, and that's the thing of the past for me. And yeah, sure, I'm not 100% fruitarian. I follow the mucusless diet system. And there are times when I know if something's moving, why am I getting these weird cravings of more mucus forming things? I know how to apply the system when that happens. When I'm not feeling that way, I know how to apply the system when that isn't happening.
Mm-hmm.
That your ship is going to be moving around. And if you view as an analogy that you are a ship on the sea, you can't change the sea that you're going to be interfacing with. The crew on your ship are your cells. What's the state of them? How are they going? They want balance, they want order, they want things, they want a rhythm. Humans like rhythm. What is the mucusless diet? It's a systematic rhythm. That is none of this crazy swinging. We see people trying to change New Year's resolutions. That's an extreme pendulum swing. There's no system in that. And it's the most absurd
Especially
thing.
given the couple months before it, where the worst eating months of the year.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think the timing of that is perfect. I heard Alan Watts say that humans feel that they only deserve something if they've had a certain amount of suffering first. Unless I've suffered, unless I've abused, and I can relate to that the same way you eat trash, you have a negative cycle that you are perpetuating in your life, negatively first in the mind, goes into the physical reality through your actions. Now you feel, oh, well, I only deserve something good or a cleanse. I'm going to do a weekend detox. I hear about these all the time, or I'm doing a week cleanse with my friends. And I'll remind clients that mention this, uh, why? Why is this? It's not a weekend cleanse. You got to be working this system and looking at the bigger picture, because if you feel like you only deserve something good after you've done something quote unquote bad to yourself, it's a never-ending cycle. And we have to drop that narrative. I often use the phrase with clients, the narrative that we have within ourselves. We have to drop that. We got to reform that narrative. And better yet, have no narrative. Just have an awareness and an understanding of moving forward. And the narratives will come up, but they often come up when old waste is moving as well. I find that a very bizarre thing to witness. When you've suppressed with foods, when they move out of your body, you see an old memory come up. You see an old phrase, a feeling, despair, hatred, grief, all the rest, all that encompasses grief comes up. But it will end, it will pass, and like waves on the water, ultimately, a tide will come in, it'll go. And once you grasp that, it's not only consistent within nature, that you are a part of nature at the end of the day. And this system is directly in line with nature. And it's not about, oh, we're only encouraging this because Arnold Ehret's the best since, the best thing since sliced bread, since uh, kind of thing is, no, it's that it makes perfect sense. Um, and yeah, I think if anyone wants to know more, I know Spira, you have a community, you have, um, if you want to, yeah, say what you have there, and a way for you to reach more people where they can be supported in that world. Um, and I'm working on this as well. Anyone that works with me, I've got a community on Telegram where we can connect with one another as well. But the group coaching, the group support is really, I see where it's at. And I know you already have that set up really nicely over in your world.
Yeah, yeah. I have the Professor Spiras mucus-free membership program. A couple, sometimes during the year we have our mucus-free diet and lifestyle coaching program, and but it all works together with the membership program. There's coaching involved in that. There's Q&A sessions and accountability calls, and we have our own private platform so we can say what we want to say. We don't have to worry about the prying eyes of Facebook and Google and all that stuff. And so it's just been amazing. It's great to have a place where you can plug into other people. I always use the term plug in. You have to plug into the people. It's kind of like where they say you're the sum parts of all the five people you hang out with or your
Mm-hmm.
tribe and that kind of stuff. And I
Yeah,
say you're the parts of who you're plugging into.
yeah.
And when you join the membership and you're reading the book, we encourage reading the book, as you mentioned earlier. It's like you read this stuff every day. You don't have to read a bunch of it. I mean, I would have periods where I would read one paragraph and then just contemplate it for the next hour. And
Mm,
just there's so much wisdom and there's so much rewiring that reading these books does. Because that's really, at the end of the day, there's a lot of rewiring that we need to do to
mm,
our orientation, to our mind. And luckily, we have good, we have such a thing as neuroplasticity, so we can do that. We can fundamentally change how we think, how we feel, that kind
mm,
of thing. And reading the books is one of the best ways. Plugging into the membership program is another one of the best ways, if not the best way,
mm,
really, to get plugged
mm.
into the community. So yeah, all our information is down below, mucusfreelife.com. I'll put a link to our what's that called? The link tree thing that has then on that page, there's all the different things that we have going on and YouTube
Yeah.
channel and Instagram. I got new content on Instagram almost every day. We got new YouTube videos coming out. And so we have a whole team. I mean, I was part of one of the things that I really wanted to try to do was create a community where you help yourself, but by you helping yourself, you help other people.
Hmm.
I mean, and to me, that is the greatest. If you were talking earlier about principles
Yeah.
of religion and spirituality, help your brothers and sisters, help your fellow
Mm,
humans, do unto others as you would have them do to you. However you phrase it,
mm,
what if we're not doing that, what are we doing?
mm,
And once you start to understand that the first and foremost, the best thing that you can do for your fellow men and women and babies and children and everybody and animals, the best thing you can do for everybody is get yourself together physiologically.
Mm.
Liberate yourself. Like you were saying earlier, you get the in the plane the gas mask or the not a gas mask but the oxygen mask. You
Mm.
got to liberate yourself first, and then the level of knowledge. My friend Brother Air used to say that in order to fill yourself up with the knowledge and wisdom of the universe, you have to be empty. And he's an
Mm.
avid faster. He's a guy that really has mastered fasting,
Oh yeah.
and that's that's a big piece to understand. You can't be all constipated and filled up with goop and then expect to think clearly, expect to feel good. Most people don't know, they've never really felt good in their body, or they've never really felt good in their body since they were a child. And it happens so slowly over time that constipation gets up and we just accept it. It's like, oh, I'm getting older. My back is starting to hurt. My joints hurt. Oh, the weather's changing. There's my hip again and my knee hurts and all this stuff that is all connected to what you're eating and what you have been eating over time, premature aging. We're not
Mm.
supposed to age as fast as people do. Yeah, we're going to
Mm.
age a little bit, but we're not supposed
Mm.
to age this so rapidly. Where I got
Mm.
people that I went to school with that look elderly already. And I'm like,
Mm.
it's just there's
Mm.
so much unnecessary suffering that can be removed.
Mm.
We just don't need that. But there is a karmic piece to this, and coined the term physiological karma. So
Mm.
you do have to pay reparations, whether it's not even like the real, I mean, there's the spiritual component to it, but if you want to think about it scientifically, just cause and effect.
Yeah.
Because you've broken all of these laws, you and your bloodline have broken the law of vitality equals power minus obstruction, meaning you got way too much obstruction in your body. And when there's more obstruction than there is the body's ability to power through it, you're done. That's the end of it. No more vitality, no more breath,
Yeah.
no more life. But when you learn that this life is all about elimination, not about B12 supplements and and whatever vitamin D and all these supplementation and all, it's
Methylene
about
blue.
elimination. What's that?
Methylene blue, the new one, the blue, the dye that people are taking.
I don't. I
And
mean,
man, there's always something.
it's always something. What was that one? Yeah, there was some kind of blue metal stuff, or I mean, it's just there's always something that it's like that, and
Mm.
what I love about this path, the liberation is, I mean, you, you take yourself out of that entire reality where
Mm.
you don't have to worry anymore. Where most people there, and what Arnold Ehret says is people went from being scared. We were talking earlier about the possession and demons. And so people went from being scared of being possessed by some outside entity to they transferred that to the myth of the germ. It's like, oh,
Mm.
scared of the germ. The microbe, the virus, this, and I'm scared. And it's always, what do you do to people if you're trying to control a people? What do you want to do?
Yeah.
You keep them scared, keep them fat and dumb,
Mm.
and pleasantly like, oh, and make sure they can indulge in their carnal appetites,
Yeah.
and then keep them sick. and
mm,
you can control them all day. And that's what we got going on here. I mean, it's really I recommend people check out Brave New World novel because I just felt like this reality, so much of what we talked about today, you had what they get into with the hospitals and the psychopathy that is re revolves around, it's almost like recycling of humans. There's no more
mm,
emotion left. The
mm,
elderly are like just literally sort of killed off and euthanized, and
mm,
no one sees them. People that are born are just put into their station in life, and I mean, there's just no autonomy, no humanity. The things that we would define as, well, what's defines us, this human spark that's gone, and that's where the pus and mucus based world lands you. Is your that spark gets dimmer and dimmer, and eventually it's gone. And once it's gone, we're gone. We
mm,
got
mm,
we that's where we have work to do. But I think there's enough of us now. There's enough of us, and there's always been a few smart people. You talk about the Pythagoras, and there's a lot of different
mm,
sages and folks over the years that would have this simple information, this simple, that put it together, or it was passed down to them.
mm,
But it's to now we're at a crossroads where there's this split, and moving forward, I see where on one side, you're going to have those of us that are trying to, at least trying to heal ourselves, trying to live a more natural life, trying to really focus on physiological liberation. Then on the other side, the gluttony people are, it's just going to get more and more insane. More, it's not like 50 years ago where there was not as much gluttony. People
mm,
still ate pus and mucus forming foods, but not like today with this just this level of gluttony, and put all the processed stuff in there and the chemicals, and I mean it's just an absolute mess.
mm.
So, there is no 1 foot in and 1 foot out. You can't, which some people try to do and it doesn't work. You're
Yep.
either all in over there and just eat yourself to death, just don't even worry about it, or you get over here and you're working toward physiological liberation. You take yourself out of that reality. And like I
Mm,
said, that's scary for some people, but things like
yeah.
the membership, plugging in with other folks that's been doing this for a lot of years, that can really be beneficial to you in terms of just connecting
Yeah.
and getting that support that you need.
Yeah, and it's something that you mentioned about moving yourself out of that reality is y a human being only has so much attention. And it's like if you apply your vision as one, if I look straight ahead, I'm seeing here. I'm missing out what's over here. It's as if I choose to open this door, I have all these doors to choose to
Mm.
open. I can only go through one of them. You can't be walking in one, coming out, and people are doing this, and that connects back to what you said about straddling the barbed wire fence. Dr. Morse has an almost identical line, and he said those that are fence sitters ex will eventually become aware of what barbed wire does to them. And and that is so true. You jump on the fence. Oh, I want to go. Oh, I don't. It's like beginning a hike and just hanging around at the trailhead the whole time with a bunch of
Mm.
people. How are you going to walk the hike? Man, the summits are beautiful, dude. Like you've no idea how good
Yeah.
it is, man. Like the birds and there's squirrels around there. Oh man, that sounds amazing, dude. Like I want to go. Will you, by all means, come with? Nah, but old mates here with the barbecue going, and it's well,
Yeah,
you
they
can't
got the
have both.
beer.
You can't have the beer and the barbecue with you on the hike, buddy. And there's this, you can make up it's fun making up these analogies of translating it's almost, it's a hesitation. And, you see this expression as well in plenty of children's books, writings of the past, so many accounts of returning to innocence or being like a child. And that is that ultimately children don't have hesitation. Action and intention are simultaneous, as to use an Alan Watts expression, and that human beings, they hear about something, and it's like you mentioned before, and then they go, Maybe I should. I'll contemplate on this for a bit. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Well, I've read something else about that. It was saying that the carnivore, and then and then so on, so, and then it's just this stagnation in words. They're getting lost in ideas, opposed to, well, you got to start taking action on this, and um, there's no time. Start yesterday, and that's why you'll see. And this is how I think a way for someone that may be listening to this that thinks, oh, well, I listened to a podcast saying the polar opposite. How do I know? And I completely get why you would say that. And for me, what the biggest realization was that I knew that hearing what Arnold Ehret said, listening to Spira's videos and Spira's podcasts, hearing him and Brother Air speak on how his brother Air did a year fasting during that time, doing 1 month dry fasting. I encourage you all to listen to that episode because it is a game changer in the experience of being a human being. Not that we recommend that. Brother Air went and did this on his own accord, but the fact is that there's these realities that it's not exclusive. It's not exclusive to Spirit. It's not exclusive to Brother Air. It's not exclusive to Dr. Morse, Eric, whomever. That you can all experience these different things if you start going down in this direction. And the way that I knew that it was true is that there was a consistency around all of these laws in nature. You spoke about breaking these fundamental laws that we have to align ourselves with. And once we start seeing them, they come up everywhere. The way a car runs, there's laws within a car. You can't have certain things happening or else the engine won't run. The house, the way the house runs with the sewer system, there's a consistency. It doesn't change. These, as you said, in science, we have chemistry. That's the physical representation of what non-physically is being created. And of course, there's other layers that people can get in as depth if they want. I don't really care for it. But the fact is that behind that, to use a Rudolf Steiner expression, there's like a knowing that is pulling you forward. It's almost like your heart's whispering to you. It's like something in the universe within you is saying yes. Everything else is otherwise but a justification, just an idea of someone trying to convince you. And if anyone's got anything out of this, is we're not trying to convince anyone of anything. It's just let truth be apparent in and of itself. It'll speak for itself. Taoism puts it very clearly of, falsity will make show of itself without having to say, hey, I'm fake. It'll be apparent and truth will be apparent. And I hope that anyone listening to this that has read these books, these are some aside one, Thus Speaketh the Stomach. We've got rational fasting. You know, this is literally the best guide on how to prepare for any sort of fast and also to drop the dogma of what is a fast. I believe you opened the intro with that about this whole thing of people say fast, a true fast is only if you only
Yeah,
water or
the
dry. Oh,
relative nature of fasting. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. We know people do technology fasts, and I believe in Arnold Ehret speaks that any eating less is fasting ultimately.
right.
And straight away with that concept, there has been a weight lifted off of your mind. Because before that, me being one of them, before reading this book and reading it again and reading it again, reading a chapter, contemplating that chapter, really important we do this because our minds have been rewired. And as you talked about neuroplasticity, we can change these things, but they don't change overnight. And that's why supporting yourself with all these materials, Spiras membership club. I'm working on a group coaching, and I've got my free Telegram community you guys can join, and then one-to-one coaching, really helping. I try to help people in 4 month increments in the longest sense, using herbal protocols and transitionary diets, depending on what problems they have, in supporting them with that. But always I'm encouraging them, guys, get on the books, get on the podcasts, start just submerging every single fiber of your being into this world because that is your responsibility. And some people don't want to hear it. That's fine. They won't be working with us. They won't be in this world. But those that are ready, there's no better time than right now. So, Spirit, thank you so much for being on this discussion today. This has been fun. We've covered some cool stuff. And any final words from your end, mate?
Nah, just everybody, nothing more important in your health. Just nothing more important in your health. And we've been given the golden key to transform ourselves, body, mind, and spirit, and lead into really a transformation of the species to go
Mm,
from just whatever I say Homo sapiens to Homo spiritus. It's like transition. I think I had to that was I think David Hawkins, that was his in one of his books we took the Homo spiritus concept, and I had to borrow that one. But
Mm,
that's what, and as we were talking about earlier with the physical fitness books and that kind of stuff, it's a vision of what does the world look like when you have humans that are eating in accord with how they were designed, how
mm,
we were not born to eat cows and pigs and drink cow milk. Like there's nothing natural about that. All
mm,
of that has been programmed or we've been oriented to this nonsense. And when you break away from that, there's true freedom. So
mm,
this is working toward true freedom. We can totally transform this planet on a
mm,
real fundamental level, but it's going to come from us doing this work, getting ourselves together, and then creating new types of living environments, new kinds of resource-based economies, and there's all these things that's a whole other discussion. But
mm,
that is the future that we can create but it's only going to happen if we clean ourselves up.
mm. 100%. 100%. And I hope that people listening to this and seeing this really feel the freedom in that, because I see people that aren't quite ready yet, or they feel they're not ready yet, should I say, which is more of just a false agreement they've created. That when I pretty much say what you just said, Spirit, to people that are in fear, that have been given a medical diagnosis, they've been given uh, like you got 3 months to live, and you got to get chemo, and yet we've already said you got 3 months to live. Like, so why would I do chemo? And they've gotten lost in this worship to this system just by speaking these words. A completely different way of speaking, completely different way of communicating with one another. You see a non-physical weight just taken off of them. And even if they're okay to die, they would much rather die going on a process like this. And I've seen clients come out of those situations where they were terminally ill. We know
Right,
Arnold Ehret was terminally ill with Bright's disease, and all the, I think, 9 or 7 medical professionals couldn't help him.
right,
And and there are so many people that even aren't even aware of this know that there are family members who said no to the no to the doctor's medications, that said no to the surgeries, and they're still alive. So what does that tell you? Even though they haven't changed anything else yet, so that just shows that we can come back from this, as you said, and that there's no we even when you're thinking in the future, you're doing it from right now. So at the end of the day, there is only right now, and your actions will determine what tomorrow will be like, and then what next year will be like, and your children will be like, and so on and so forth. And to me, that is a wondrous, amazing uh, idea in my mind that I feel humanity's been there before, and we can get back to it, as you said, and we will get back to it, and we are in the process of getting back to it. So yeah, all of this video will be on Spira's channel, will be on mine. I'll get it on some Instagram reels, and yeah, thank you so much again, Spira. This was an enlightening conversation once again, and anyone in doubt, reach out to me or Spira, get connected. If you need consults, we're here. If you need community, we're here. And yeah, you'll be hearing from more of us in the future.
peace, love, and breath.
Peace, love, and breath. Awesome, man. That was awesome. Thanks so much, dude.
Yeah,
That
man.
was, yeah, it was brilliant.